So this is a corn alfalfa pivot and a corn pivot, and one of the objectives is to see if corn triticale mix produces more and uses the same or less water than alfalfa. So one's a two-crop system, and then of course alfalfa being the perennial crop. Just take note, these pivots out in this area, they've only been in for 1 year now, so that entered into play in some of our results. But we went out the day after they planted, or maybe a couple days after they planted, and we put in soil moisture sensors. This corn was planted on 22-inch rows. There was no furrows in beds, so it's just the furrow is where the corn is planted. We protected the seed by where we were doing digging by putting a half pipe over them, and then we put our data logger about 10 feet or more from where the soil moisture sensors go in. And you can see on the right side of the screen there, it's quite shallow soil and very gravelly, and even the shallow soil is quite sandy. They had planted triticale in September, and then they harvested it in May, and then they planted around the 1st of June. They harvested about near the last half of May. And going back to what Merrill has done, they took, just out of curiosity, they took span 3 and 5 and left it in the stubble and planted the corn into the stubble. And then the rest of it, they conventionally tilled it, but a shallow tillage. But I took this picture the day that we were there. So this is a couple days after they planted. And that's the same wheel track there, but you can see the water ponding where they have tilled the soil and no ponding where they have not tilled the soil. So I think that's a pretty good indication of this particular location where the soil was brand new, had very little organic matter in it. Infiltration rate was much higher with that. And we had a problem as we got into the season. I'm just showing mostly pictures here, but when we went back down a few times during the season, we could see that there's a lot of non-uniformity in the corn. And it's new ground. They had fertilized it all the same, treated it all the same, tilled it all the same, but it's strictly a water issue. And I don't know if you can see here, but see how that water's in that furrow, and anywhere we had a slope, we had a problem with the water running away. So we had some areas that were decent where our sensors were and some that were poor. Here's one that's kind of medium, one that received the same amount of water, 30-inch spacing, brand new pivot package, applying 850 gallons per minute in this pivot. So when I got back from one of those trips, I pulled up and looked at Ndvi, which is Normalized Difference Vegetative Index, and from Sentinel-2 satellites. So it's about a 10-meter pixel. But you can see, you know, the day they planted it, the strips that were no-till, and then you can see as we progress through the season, it's a little hard to tell, but I've got some satellite images, some drone images that show a little better, but you can see the non-uniformity in the field. And most of our sensors were probably about 2/3 the way out of the field. And we were comparing the alfalfa field. This field is much steeper so far as slope, but it's been in about 15 to 20 years, and they have no runoff. You can see we've got runoff coming off of this field in a couple of locations. It doesn't go very far in that sandy soil, but we still had runoff and non-uniformity. So, and then here's when we went and took our sensors out, which is the day before they harvested it. So here's our 3 sensors, one in very short corn that didn't get much water. And then we had one where the corn was, I don't know, 8 to 10 feet tall. And then one where the corn was, 6 or 7 feet tall. Josh there's about 6 feet, 4 inches tall, pretty tall guy. And here's the non-uniformity issue that we had. And this farmer has 100 pivots approximately, and we ended up getting one that wasn't very uniform. All the other pivots in this area is uniform. And we think that's because of the just the water moving around after it hits the ground. Just a few more pictures. And here's the yield harvest. They had 2 choppers in there. This is all for silage. Had 2 choppers, and I think each had a different yield scale because every other row is a little different. And I think that's because of the combines, but you can still see the non-uniformity in that field. And we went in with Aguirre, which has like a 6 centimeter, and I put 3 different images. Here's the aerial image of that field, the cornfield, taken August 10th. And here's the Ndvi, so we still got that non-uniformity. And then here's the thermal temperature. And the thermal is important because as the water evaporates, it cools the crop. So the darker color is the highest evaporation, and these lighter colors are less evaporation. And of course, out here in the desert, there's not any evaporation. It's just really dry there. The sandy soils, and this is down to the last sensor was 48 inches. And so, you know, we went a little below that with the water it's representing, but we had 8 sensors in. Kind of at the shallow ones, we went in between the rows and underneath the rows. And is very, very dry in all of the sites. So they harvested the end of September. A couple weeks later, they planted triticale. In between, they put a manure compost on it. So pretty much every load of silage that went out, a load of manure came back. They're probably about 12 or 15 miles from their dairy. And so they're trying to build that soil up. But we went into the 3rd span, so where the application rate is lower, and we think we'll, so far things are looking pretty good there. We haven't seen any runoff in the few irrigations that they have given. I should point out that the total irrigation amount during planting to harvest was 24 inches, and they had 2.8 inches pre-irrigation. And so 27.6 inches total irrigation. And that's pretty much the water that they used because that's out in the desert and there's really no precipitation. This is just taken last month, and this is triticale. I just went down there to check on things because I stopped getting data from a few things. Triticale looking fine. The alfalfa, they put cattle in it, and so that's why I wasn't getting data. They messed up my sensor, so I got those secure now. But the alfalfa does have a 90-inch spacing versus a 30. So I think that might be part of the reason. And our sensors are all out here, and this is a conduit that goes back to the pivot track. So we don't go in and harvest it by hand. We don't need to go there ever. The sensors are just there and they farm over them. And that's the uniformity of the alfalfa field versus the corn. So I think that's